Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of Ask Away, and hopefully this is a regular series. Ideally, I make a movie hopefully every week or every couple of weeks depending on the number of questions that I have coming in. So this week's questions, I just chose 10 sort of at random of all the questions that got either posted on my YouTube as far as the first introductory video that I did, or through Twitter or other means that people post questions to me. So again, I grabbed 10 sort of random ones. They're kind of all over the place, but hopefully they give a little bit more insight into me and some of the stuff that I'm kind of interested in. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it, all right? Number one from Jamos LP. I don't know if it's Hamos LP or Jamos LP. We'll go with Jamos LP. Says or asks, what is your favorite game franchise? So this is a really easy one for me. I know there's a lot of different game franchises through the ages that I've loved and enjoyed and just been enamored with, but the one that has always sort of remained up at the top for a variety of reasons is the God of War series. And since the sort of release of the first one, I have just applauded that team, the Sony Santa Monica Studios, and just the talent that they have there for pushing not only the hardware to its sort of limits, but just being able to develop and create these epic sequences that most games strive to achieve. And it's amazing, and what they're able to accomplish, and even on older hardware, and just keeps getting better and better. I have played pretty much every God of War game, even the remastered HD ones. I play through them again. I've slowed down a little bit as far as the challenges at the end. I used to always, for every God of War game, I used to play every difficulty setting, complete every challenge, basically do everything that you could in that game before I put it down. I loved it that much. But like I said, with so many other titles down there, I still spend a lot of time with each God of War game that comes out, but I don't do 100% on everything on them sort of anymore. I'm looking forward to the next one, and seeing what they're able to do. It seems like Cory Barlog is back, he worked on God of War 2 and kind of left. I think he kind of left the industry, or maybe tried a few different things. Then he eventually came back to Santa Monica Studios and is sort of from my understanding, a key person on the latest God of War that's coming out for PS4. So I expect that that's going to be a pretty exciting series. But yeah, I've had to say right off the cuff, like, what's my favorite game franchise? It's definitely God of War. Next question. What was the first game you ever played, and how did that, if at all, impact you at the time? From Perry Cambley. So, I'm trying to remember. That's a tough one. I started playing games a long time ago, and I'm trying to remember the first game that I ever played. It was obviously probably in the arcades, but I'm trying to think what it was. Maybe it was something as like Pac-Man or something. I don't think any of those initial games that I played in arcades really left impact on me. I mean, I think it reinforced the fact that I like video games and playing video games, but it's not like they really kind of blew me away or kind of changed my life in any way. I don't think it was later until the first sort of, I think, major event that really blew me away was the Amiga 500. So at the time I just had a regular IBM PC. I was running EGA graphics, I think 16 colors, right? EGA, and still using 5¼ inch disk drives and playing a lot of the King's Quest and things like that. But my friend had an Amiga 500 and he had gotten it, and he told me, like, you should come over and check this out. And I came over and I was blown away. He had it hooked up to the stereo system, and he popped in Dragon's Lair, and it came from the desert, and a lot of those CinemaWare titles, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is an entirely different generation of gaming. I'm playing these 16 color EGA graphics, Sierra games, and you've got these Dragon Lair ports and things like that that are just amazing. So I think that was sort of the first time where I'm like, wow, technology and advances in technology and hardware can make such a substantial difference in the overall experience of a game and sort of how you feel about it, right? So the Amiga really got me super excited about games, and I had to have one of those, and I eventually got one. And the eventual really deep-seated kind of progression from PC gaming to console gaming after that. I do PC gaming, but far less than I do on consoles. I would say that only about 20% of my gaming time is on PC versus 80% on consoles. I'm definitely more of a console kind of guy. I love that sort of plug and play experience, and I love being able to play it on a big, 60-inch screen through stereo, surround stereo system and stuff like that. So, but to answer your question, I guess haphazardly, it wasn't necessarily a game, but it was a system, the Amiga 500 system, that really kind of sparked sort of my really deep-seated interest in games and really left an impact on me. Next one is from the Retro Game Players. That is a great channel on YouTube if you ever get to see it. He does a great job of kind of playing through all the old kind of classic games, and he tries the best to do it on the original hardware. He has a great selection of videos right now that he's basically moving to a new location or to a new house, and he's disconnecting all of his capture gear and his sort of streaming setup. And he's been going through showing a lot of his games and how he records everything, and it's very, very interesting. Very interesting videos. If you're interested or getting into streaming games, or especially retro-oriented games, older systems, and trying to figure out how to get it all to look good, definitely check out the Retro Game Players channels. You can learn a lot from him. But his question was, how did you get your VF2 machine? What you can see behind me, let me see, right there. How did you get your Virtua Fighter 2 machine? And was it at Sega or something? And I actually got the Virtua Fighter 2 machine before I started working at Sega. I was always a fighting game fan, and the Virtua Fighter series was always a top one for me, and I knew that if I ever got an arcade machine, and I've had a couple throughout my life, but this is the one that I've kept, and I've gotten rid of the other ones, but I knew I wanted a fighting game, and it was a toss-up of should I go with a classic like Street Fighter or a Virtua Fighter series or Darkstalkers, or even actually Killer Instinct was another one that I really wanted, but I was concerned about the life sort of the hard drive setup and stuff, and eventually decided Virtua Fighter is the series that I love the most probably, and just the intricacy of it. And VF2, I spent so much time playing VF2 in the arcades and just loving it. And it was such a huge step from VF, the original Virtua Fighter. And I got quite good at it in the arcades. I could play every character, and I just love... It is complex, but yet there's a simplicity to it that got a little bit awkward as the series went on, and just the sheer number of moves per character and things like that. And I felt that VF2 really struck a nice balance between the number of moves per character, balance of the overall game. Yes, there are issues, but balance across the characters, and ease of actually teaching people to play it. So, that definitely is top of my list of fighting games, and I wanted to get it. So I found a good deal. I think it was on eBay one time, and had it shipped here, and had it ever since. And while I've gotten rid of some of the other, the other arcade machines that I've had, this is the one that I've kept and I still play. I used to play this weekly. Now it's probably monthly, but yeah, there was definitely a time where I played it on a very consistent basis. So there you go. Hopefully that answers your question, Retro Game Players. Moving on, how did you get your start in the industry? From Goma352. That's an interesting name. I've talked about that a little bit. You can check out the video on my YouTube channel about sort of my career path. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I mean, I can make another video on it if people are interested, but really how I got into this industry was when I was going to college in Oregon. Across the street from a college was a development studio called Dynamics, which was owned by Sierra, who again did with Roberta Williams the King's Quest series and Police Quest and all those other Quest games. The Dynamics studio did things like Red Baron. We did Tribes and titles like that, just PC development. And so they needed some testers. I knew a lot about computers at the time. I was taking computer science in college, and so I sort of applied, went in, and they had this multi-page form test that you had to do, and I did it like really fast, and they're like, whoa, okay, you obviously know a lot about computers. Would you like to start tomorrow testing? And I said yeah, and so worked on the schedule as far as when I could work and when I could go to school, and just kind of work my way up in that studio there, just doing QA and moving on, and eventually leaving and going to California, where I started my second wave of my career at Imagine Media and writing for PSM PlayStation Magazine and getting back into the games industry. But as far as getting into the industry in the first place, it was at Dynamics doing QA, which is a great way to get into the industry if you're interested in getting into gaming. QA is definitely it's hard work, don't get me wrong, but it is a great way to really get to understand how games are made and all the different groups and components that it takes to create a game. And you quickly start to learn and understand why not all games are great. It wants a team. There's no team saying they're like, let's make the worst game that we can. There are always factors that impact that. And like I said, really with enough time and resources, pretty much anyone I think can make a good game if they have the right talent. But that isn't the challenge. The challenge is trying to make the best game that you can under the circumstances and time and budget and other factors. And those are the things that you fight against, right? That perfect storm where it tests your patience and it tests your just level of frustration, because you want to create great products and great games for the fans and for people in general, and there are other factors within the company or the industry that push against that, and you really have to be strong-willed and have patience to get anything out there of decent quality at all, because it is a tough fight to get something out there, and especially a tough fight to try to get something out there that is even close to the original vision that you had for the project in general. But anyway, that's a long-winded answer or response, but basically QA, if you're interested in getting into gaming, I highly suggest trying to find QA opportunities and jump in there right away and spend some time getting to grips with the industry and kind of spending some time learning about what role you want to play in this industry, because there's a lot of different ones. All right? Next question. If you could work on any game franchise, what would it be and why? From Blue Rings 27. Going back to the first question, as far as my favorite game franchise is God of War. I would love to work on God of War. I still do. I still, have a lot of ideas in the back of my head about God of War. I've studied God of War a lot. I worked on projects, unfortunately, that didn't come out, but where I tried to mirror God of War in many respectives and sort of building upon what they had done and learning from it. So definitely, if there was ever an opportunity to work on the God of War franchise, I would jump at it. Next one. Do you have a favorite game genre? From Mike DeMar. I would have to say action-adventure, third-person action-adventure games are my forte, depending how you say it. I love those, from the Uncharted's to the Tomb Raiders to the God of Wars. The action-adventure / action platform games are my go-to experiences and probably fill up the bulk of my time of gaming-wise, aside from maybe fighting games or something. But that is definitely my favorite genre. And there's so many that have been released through the ages. but they continue to be my favorite. I love the story narrative aspect of it, the combat and the navigational puzzles and just the general puzzles in general. General puzzles in general. Anyway, so yes, third person action adventure games, sort of number one genre for me. Next question. Have you been watching the Sonic Boom TV shows? Andres Lopez. Oh, Andres, hey, Mr. Lopez. He follows me a lot on Twitter. That's great. Or tweets me a lot on Twitter. Yes, I definitely record the Sonic Boom TV shows. I'm not caught up per se. I'm a few episodes behind, but I definitely watch them. I want to support, Freiberger and all those guys who have helped to make that cartoon a huge success. They deserve all the credit that has come to them, and I love what they're doing with it. I'm excited to see where it goes from there. And actually, I've gotten a lot more into kind of cartoons recently, trying to get Gravity Falls and Star vs. the Force of Evil and things like that. I really am digging a lot of the cartoons that are out now, though they've been out for a little while, but I'm getting into them now. They're great. There's a lot of great cartoons on TV, and so a lot of weird ones like Pickle and Peanut, which I still don't really understand. But anyway, yes, I do watch the Sonic Boom TV shows. Next question from DS762. It seems you are a comic fan. What comics are you reading, and do you have a favorite series? I'm all over the place when it comes to comics. Yes, I do love comics. I don't buy them regularly. I'm more of, well, I used to, like every week I used to do that. I don't do that anymore. I'm more of a trade paperback or collected edition sort of guy. I like to read stories, in one fell swoop versus waiting weekly or monthly for it to come out. But I do follow the industry, as a whole, and I love seeing where things are going, and I definitely pick up as many comics as I can, graphic novels, etc., and read those, or digitally. I'm more of a digital guy now with comics for some reason. So I read a lot. Do I have a favorite series? That's a tough one. I mean, if one had to jump to mind, I think Fables is probably one of my favorite series. I love that series. I reread it a lot, the back issues and stuff, and I just think it was well done and just a very clever take on fairy tales, and related to which I love what Telltale was able to do with that universe in the game that they released. If I had to say one right now, it'd probably be Fables. Next one from Huff and Puff. What is your favorite Sonic game? Obviously, people have asked me this a lot. Basically, I think it's Sonic Adventure, the first Sonic Adventure. And, I think that one left the biggest impact to me because it was that huge transition, from the older hardware to the Dreamcast. And, I was really excited about the Dreamcast. I even had a fan site called Dreamcast Life, which I worked on with some people. At the same time, I was doing PlayStation Magazine, so that was a little bit ironic. But Sonic Adventure I was super, super excited about being able to play Sonic like that in this fully realized 3D world. And the short story I tell is that I was so excited about it. I had a Japanese Dreamcast because I went to Japan to get the Japanese Dreamcast when it launched. And I didn't know, when the Sonic Adventure exactly was going to arrive. This was during Christmas. It came out in December, I think, or was going to be shipping in December. And there was a chance that I was going to visit my parents up in Oregon. And so, as I was not sure where I was going to be when that game shipped, I actually ordered and bought two of them, having one shipped to my parents' house in Oregon and one shipped to my place in California, just in case. So that's how much of a fan I was. And in the end, it actually ended up, I was in Oregon at the time, and the moment it showed up, I was so happy. I had brought my Japanese Dreamcast with me, and I spent the whole sort of winter vacation going to all my different college and high school friends and just showing them the Dreamcast, because it wasn't out yet in the United States, right? And just showing them Sonic Adventure and Virtua Fighter and Pen Pen Triathlon and Godzilla. Granted, some of those games are not the greatest showcase of the Dreamcast, but Sonic Adventure definitely, I think, blew people away, and it was an amazing accomplishment by Sonic Team. And I think it was almost everything I wanted a kind of 3D Sonic to be. So it still has a special place in my heart, and because of that, so I just kind of stick with that as my favorite Sonic game. Thanks, Huff and Puff. And the last question for this episode of Ask Away is from Mob Slayer Extreme. And he asks, what did you think of Batman v Superman? How strangely appropriate. I just did yesterday a 2-hour podcast with the Sega Nerds guys going over my thoughts on Batman v Superman. We had a great discussion about our likes, dislikes of the movie, what our thoughts are on the critical reception of the movie, and where we thought the DC universe was going to go from this point on. So I would stay tuned for that. Ping me on YouTube or on Twitter, and I'll share the link to that audio podcast once it's available. It should be available pretty soon. We did a video recording, so I assume that the Sega Nerds guys have to extract the audio and put their intro and outro sequences on it. But I expect that it'll come out later this week or next week. So yeah, you can definitely hear my thoughts on that. I mean, if I were to sum it up, really, I did like it. I definitely suggest people to go see it. It has its problems, but as an overall experience, I thought it was very enjoyable and had a lot of fun with it. So there you go. All right. Well, that concludes this first episode of Ask Away. Thank you to all the folks who contributed questions. Please continue to do so. Tweet me at Frostman007 or post on the YouTube videos for Ask Away. And again, next time I will choose another batch of random questions and answer them as best I can. So that's it. Have a great rest of the week, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.